Okay, hello everyone. Hello to our ESCOM webinar. Today we are today is the 29th of October in the eastern shore of Nova Scotia. This is our local time. Is the so the is 6 p.m. and we are starting with our 11th webinar. And today we have our guest speaker. She will be talking to us about one of the most worldwide known project related with citizen science and crowdsourcing data. But it's something that also we are starting introducing on the Eastern Shore with the ESCOM. So we are leading this initiative in Nova Scotia. And this is why we are very happy to receive today here Dr. Elizabeth George, and Libby, that is not really how we refer to her. And just to remember that ESCOM is the Eastern Shore Citizen Science Coastal Monitoring Network. We are community members doing science, and we're not just collecting the data. We are collecting the data, but also understanding what's this data, and we are interpreting this data about the most important. We want to understand better what's happening on the coast, how to be better prepared for any kind of risk, coastal risk, climate-related risk, but also to conserve our coast. On the Eastern Shore, we have one of the most amazing areas. It's the wildest area in Nova Scotia. We have very nice coastal ecosystem, but we need to conserve this ecosystem. But how to conserve this ecosystem if we don't know this ecosystem? So this is why we as a community members, we started in 2024 collecting data, and now we are also analyzing this data. And a big part of this are these webinars, because with this webinar we can talk with a different guest speaker from Canada and all around the world about topics related with citizen science in coastal areas. So this is part of today. So I would like to welcome our guest speaker, and thanks, Lee, for staying with us. So we are here just to know about CoastReach, CoastSnap, Coasty, and all these great initiatives that you are leading with the University of Waterloo. Welcome.
Thanks, Camilo. I'll just get my screen ready to share again here. All right, can you see the slides okay?
Yeah, perfectly.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for the introduction. So my name is Elizabeth George. I do go by Libby. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Waterloo under Chris Hauser, Dean of Science, and also professor at the University of Waterloo. So he is the principal investigator for all of these projects, and I essentially manage them and run them. So today I'm going to talk about both the Coasty and CoastReach citizen science programs. CoastReach has been installed in Nova Scotia. We have a couple of sites with Camilo and ESCOM, but the CoastReach program really began with Coasty, so I'm just going to give a little bit of a background there, and I will also talk about data collection and processing, and also how you can set up a station and download photos. So coastal systems in Canada are increasing in vulnerability due to coastal flooding, changes in storm activity, changes in ice cover in the winter. Shoreline protection is altering alongshore sediment transport pathways. We're also experiencing bluff retreat and some nutrient loading as a result of this. And then so as coastal researchers, we started thinking about how can we start to monitor everything everywhere all at once. This is Chris's favorite slide that he designed for these presentations. So what is Coasty? So all of this began with the Coasty program, which is a citizen science photo monitoring program focused on coastal landscapes. It is based on the international CoastSnap program developed by Mitch Harley at the University of New South Wales in Australia. So the only reason why we didn't just start incorporating CoastSnap programs over here in Canada is because we started this program with Parks Canada, and they were not too crazy about having images hosted on servers in the US. So that is essentially why, that is why we began what is called the CoastSeap program, which is specifically a collaboration between Parks Canada and the University of Waterloo. And in particular, we started thinking about this following the impacts of Hurricane Dorian in Atlantic Canada in 2019. Since the program has started, we've had over 10,000 image submissions since September 2021. We now have over 13 participating parks, and this expansion was funded by both Parks Canada and the Canadian Geological Society. All the images from this program are open source and free to access. So then we started to extend this project. So we started getting so much interest from this CoastSeap program from municipalities and other provincial parks. But CoastSeap was specific to Parks Canada. So instead, we started the CoastReach program, which again would apply instead to municipalities, conservation areas, provincial parks, even residential areas. And the CoastReach program is fundamentally identical to the CoastSeap program. So CoastReach is part of an overarching GeoReach project that we are now running. So this is actually the host website for CoastReach. So all of these different projects, again, are functionally the same as CoastSeap, but we also decided to extend into different landforms. So this includes Glacier Reach, River Reach, Regen Reach, and Marsh Reach. So Glacier Reach, you might have also heard of it as ICY, which was installed in Parks Canada and also BC Parks this past summer. And we have also started River Reach, and Regen Reach actually just took off in Jasper National Park this past summer as well. So how does it work? It's very simple. So if you know of a stand or you found one, essentially this stand has an instruction panel on it. So I have two examples on this slide. The one on the left is kind of like our default panel that we would use for municipalities or provincial parks. And essentially we just change whatever logo is associated with that stakeholder in the top right. And then the example on the right is the same thing, but this was just the Ontario Parks color scheme, just for a quick example. So it's very simple. You just place your cell phone in the cradle at the top of the stand. You take a photo. You then scan the QR code, which will take you directly to the CoastReach website where you submit your photo. So this is what the stands look like. So we're now manufacturing them entirely out of aluminum. They're about 3 feet tall. We have extended the width of the window because since 2021, the cell phone cameras have changed quite a bit, as I'm sure most of you are aware. On the right over there, that's a quick schematic that we're also able to share with you if you're wanting to construct the stands on your own. So once you scan the QR code, first it will take you to the CoastReach landing page, and then you just go to the top right, click on Submit CoastReach. And then that will bring you to the sites page. So you can either click on the tile or you can also use the search bar. Since we have so many locations now, it might not be easy to find your location right away, but we do have a search bar, so that would bring it right up for you. And then once you click on that location and site, you simply upload the image either straight from your camera roll, or you can take a photo right there and it will upload the photo. So a little bit about project expansion specifically for CoastReach. We did recently acquire funding through the Canada Water Agency to expand this program across the Great Lakes within the past year. So this includes 39 stands and counting. A little more specific to Atlantic Canada for our group today. So there was a focus on expansion for CoastReach and CoastSeap, supported by a grant with the Canadian Geological Foundation. CoastSeap really took off in Atlantic Canada. CoastReach is catching up a little bit more with the help of Camilo and Nova Scotia park friends that are on the call today. So currently in Atlantic Canada, we have 25 Coastie sites and 16 CoastReach sites. And we are also searching for new funding sources to support this national expansion, since our funding right now is specific to the Great Lakes in particular. So data collection. So to access these images, you simply have to sign up for access to use what we call our research analytics portal. So all you have to do to access any of these images is send an email to coastalresearch@gmail.com to request access, and then we would essentially just create an account for you and then send you an email with instructions on how to access this online database. This database is open access for researchers, stakeholders, private property owners, educators, really anyone. That was sort of part of the main focus of the project when we started, is that anyone can have access to the photos, so that anyone has the ability to do research and monitor these different coastal areas across Canada. So on this research analytics portal, you can view and download the images from your site of choice. So downloading the images obviously is valuable to study a certain coastal area, and also to design educational materials or even social media materials. So if you look at the image on the bottom right, you can search through images at a certain location from a specific timeline, and it comes up with those image tiles, which is really helpful to look at, and then you can download those on the spot. And then at the top right, you can also see statistics for submissions at all the different locations. Data analysis. So I like to say that there is 2 streams of data analysis for these projects, and that is qualitative and quantitative. So qualitatively, this produces a time series photo monitoring of shoreline dynamics, such as changes in shoreline position, changes in substrate, increase or decrease in vegetation, ecosystem dynamics, also presence of algae. In the quantitative stream, we can geo-rectify images by surveying ground control points, or GCPs, and processing these images in MATLAB or Python. So this involves centimeter level GCP surveying, and ideally a UAS, so a drone survey, for detailed mapping of the area, just as a baseline to get started. So from this, we can perform quantitative monitoring of shoreline position, also look at migration patterns along shore, and also potentially erosion of cliffs or bluffs, and erosion or aggradation in sandy areas. And I'll talk a little bit more about that data processing in a second. So just for a little qualitative time series here. So this is Point Pelee Provincial Park, which is a cuspate foreland. It has a sandy spit extending south into Lake Erie. So this is preceding and also following remnants of Hurricane Helene that came through this area in, I believe it was July or August of 2024. So this is just a really good representation of how much information you can sort of even just get just from looking at these images. And it also helps us understand how much these sandy dynamic systems can change in just a period of a few days or a few weeks. So it also some coasty images from PEI following the impacts of Hurricane Fiona. You might have seen these in the news over in Atlantic Canada. These images really helped us as researchers, especially over in Ontario. It was really great that the park staff could go out and just take a couple of photos, and we were able to see immediately sort of estimate the impact that had occurred during Hurricane Fiona in 2022. So a little bit more about the quantitative analysis and the georectification. So essentially what this suite of MATLAB scripts does, and this was also developed by the University of New South Wales. So it's available on GitHub, and we have downloaded it and we use it for our image processing. So this is essentially taking the portrait images and splaying them out like a 2D map using those ground control points, so those accurate points in space. So just as an example on this image here, if you can see the green dots at the bottom left and bottom right-hand side of the boardwalk, those ground control points are being used to create the image on the right that looks all stretched out like a 2D map, like an aerial view of the beach. And then from there, the program picks out where the shoreline is based on differences in color between the sand and the water. And we're also able to edit that shoreline, which is very cool because then we can use it to track vegetation recovery on the beach or the scarp of a foredune following a major storm. And then that shoreline can be exported as a shapefile and used in geospatial analysis. So here's just a couple more examples. This is what you get directly from the CoastSnap program. So just looking at some shoreline migration along shore at Brackley Beach and Prince Edward Island National Park. And now I'll talk a little bit about quantitative results that I was actually able to derive using these images following Hurricane Fiona in 2022. So all these red stars on the images that you can see are the ground control points. So as you can tell, these changed a little bit pre and post storm as some of the infrastructure was removed, especially over in 4A and 4B here. So we did arrive on site 2 weeks post storm to do aerial surveys, UAS surveys, and to resurvey our GCPs. And then so what I wanted to do was figure out, can we use this GCP data pre and post storm and estimate erosion that we have already measured with the drones, but only using the coasty images. So this became a pretty big part of my research for about a year following the storm. And some of the results were actually pretty great. So essentially what I was able to do is project the post-storm beach slope, which if I have any coastal, well, I know I have a few coastal geomorphologists here, but our post-storm beach slope is has a very gradual, very consistent shape. There's no undulations or beach brims. So what you're actually able to do is, if you have images following the storm, you can associate the time of those images to the local water level, and then essentially back calculate the slope of the beach. And then from there, you can estimate where the scarp is and also how much sand was lost from the dune during the storm. So this is what I had tried to do following Hurricane Fiona. So looking at these profiles here, 2022, so the darkest orange profile, that would be the profile generated from our UAS or our drone surveys post-storm. And then the dashed line is the coasty calculated change. So as you can see, the top left and right, these were our ones that actually performed the best. And then as we get down into the bottom left and the bottom right, these ones did not perform quite as well, unfortunately. Actually, in the bottom left, there was some exposed bedrock that actually couldn't really be accounted for at the foot of the dune. And then in the bottom right, we just had some higher georectification errors. And then we're hoping to refine some of our techniques with that. So here, I'm just going to focus on Brackley Beach East, which was the best calculated profile here. So the foredune retreat difference. So this is the difference in retreat calculations between the UAS survey and the coasty estimate. So that was only around 2 meters for that profile. And the volume loss difference. So between the UAS survey, between the pre-storm surface and the post-storm UAS survey, and then the coasty post-storm estimate, that was also only around 2 meters cubed. So that was outstanding. Obviously, only one of the profiles worked this well, but I just thought that was really neat for expanding this technology and what we can do remotely with these kinds of images that are being collected. And I also did publish these results as part of my dissertation and also in the Journal of Physical Geography. So a couple of next steps, shifting here back over to the full GeoReach project. So some next steps that we are hoping for these projects moving forward is to enhance the website So we would really like to have a geo portal, so like a coastal atlas of Coasty and CoastReach data, just have it all just on essentially like one of those Esri geo portals that you can go in and access data from. We would also like to include historical imagery, nearby buoy data, and we're also going to include education and training materials on our website. We do have some of these materials already. We're just working on uploading them this semester. For example, Chris Hauser, he designed some lecture videos as part of an online course on coastal geomorphology, and we essentially just want to put all of those videos up onto the website, so it can also be an educational resource associated with the citizen science images. We would also like to conduct outreach to groups in high schools near the stations, and of course continue expansion of this project across Canada. So that is pretty much all I have for my slideshow. I might leave it up for a few minutes here just in case anyone has any questions about a specific slide. Camilla, if that's okay with you, and then I'll take it down after that.
Yeah, no, I think it's perfect. Thank you, Olivia. I think it's very, very interesting presentation. I think covers most of the questions that we have. I think we only have in the chat one question from Alfredo, but I would encourage, I think after Alfredo's questions, to anyone to ask. I have around 10 questions, but hopefully some of you asked before me these questions. So maybe you can read just, Libby, the question from Alfredo.
Yep. Yeah. So for image processing, are you using the same CoastSnap algorithm? Yes, we are using the same CoastSnap algorithm. Or have you developed or implemented any improvements to the analysis process? No, Alfredo, we have not yet. I would really like to. Honestly, their workflow doesn't, pun intended, doesn't really work for us. So I would really like to sort of improve the workflow, not necessarily the exact algorithm, but just how the scripts interact with each other. Unfortunately, over the past few years, the project has expanded so quickly that we haven't really been able to make these, we haven't really been able to go back and make these technological sort of improvements on the data processing side because we have been so overwhelmed with the amount of data that we are just trying to process. And it's also just dependent on who's available. Like, do we have a co-op student in that semester that's able to process the data? So in short, no, we have not improved these algorithms, but I would really like to.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, do we have another question? Okay, just raise your hand or just open your microphone. Okay, Mitch, please.
Hi, Libby. Great presentation. Thanks for presenting. Really appreciate it. So at Parks Nova Scotia, we're sort of interested in implementing a CoastReach at some parks, but we're kind of getting a grasp on how to do that exactly. In regards to sort of collaborations, like, are you open to, would Waterloo be open to collaborating with the university in Nova Scotia to facilitate this work? And then I guess,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, perfect. And then I guess the second part too is you sort of mentioned funding can be difficult, like where it's going in the future. So what would like the longevity be of this project? That's why I guess I'm hoping for multiple partners to sort of facilitate the longevity of the project.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going anywhere anytime soon. If I had to make an estimate, I would say like at least 5 to 10 years. With Parks Canada, we essentially just keep renewing. I think a 5-year renewal is the maximum that we can do with them. And we just did that last year, I think is when we updated our permit. Yes, we can absolutely collaborate with the university on your end. If that works better. So we have all the materials that we can send to you. So the great thing about this project is we can either help you design the signs and ship the stands out to you, or we can give you the tools. like the design, like the PDF designs for the signs and the stand schematics so that you guys can manufacture it on your own. So we can essentially facilitate that, like you said, or we can create those for you. And then we would just hopefully be able to find some sort of reimbursement along the way. As I said, my hands are a little bit tied with funding right now, just because everything is so Great Lakes specific for the stand manufacturing. But essentially what we've been doing, and actually what we did for Camilo last year, is we had already had a bunch of stands manufactured for the Great Lakes. And when we mass produce them, the cost of the stands gets reduced pretty dramatically. So I think when we're doing our bulk orders right now, I think they're only $70 per stand. And I can dig that information back up to get a more specific quote on that. Then we can essentially send the stands out to you, and hopefully we can get some sort of reimbursement. I don't know, from the park or the university. I know the thing with the parks too is that obviously everyone is looking for that funding to facilitate these sort of projects. Yeah, what we can probably do is at least just send you out a few just to help you guys get started, and then work from there.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think there is another question from Alfredo, and also I have some questions from the research part, and also later I have another question from the citizen science part. But I think first Alfredo, and I will just write my question there so you can answer both of them.
Yeah, so I see Alfredo's second question asking about coastal cliff environments. No, Alfredo, we have not expanded to cliffs and bluffs yet. We are monitoring quite a few kilometers of bluffs along the north shore of Lake Erie in our coastal group right now, and we would really like to expand and install some stands out there. Unfortunately, some of the sites we're actually surveying, they are receding. The bluffs are receding so fast that I think one of our stands actually got lost already last year because there was 5 or 10 meters lost in a year since it was installed. But we are actually working with a new municipality on the north shore of Lake Erie, and there will be a couple of sites that are along the shoreline looking at the bluffs. So that would be our first bluff site that we would be able to test that out. And then, okay, so Healthy Coast. How many pictures are needed to make the qualitative and quantitative analysis? Who is in charge for the image analysis of a particular beach? So for the quantitative analysis, you really just, and the qualitative analysis really, it really depends on what you're looking at. So if you're just looking at change from year to year, then you might just need a couple of images a year. But if you really want to try to capture those seasonal differences, so for example, maybe sediment returning to the beach in the summer, then you will need a few more images. So it really depends on what you're trying to study, and who is in charge for the image analysis of a particular beach. So right now we're the ones performing all the analysis. But again, we are pretty bogged down. So actually part of this program, which I would really like to get going on in the future, is actually designing some webinars and other educational materials to try to train stakeholders or researchers on how to use this CoastSnap software. The issue with that is it's all in MATLAB, and not everyone is familiar with MATLAB, which can make it difficult for analyzing. So that's kind of somewhere that we're actually a little bit stuck right now. Is we're trying to analyze as many of these images as we can, but at the end of the day, there's only so many of us, yeah. So I don't know if that helps answer your questions right now, but in short, I would like for the stakeholders actually to be doing their own image analysis.
Yeah, no, thank you, thank you. It was my question, and also I think I have a second, well, another question that is connected with that. Is
Okay.
this is one of the interesting from the research part. So I think with a university, with that, I think in DAL we can find maybe some partner that is interested to start doing this analysis. But this was why the question. But also as a citizen science initiative, also we are now collecting another kind of data. So we have weather stations. We are just starting with some wave, some gauge for waves and tides. This is a DIY instruments, but we are very happy with starting with this information that we're gonna have. We also have the beach profiles that we are doing with a manual method, but it's quite good. And also we are collecting vegetation, and now we are working. We want to publish our own methodology. But the thing is, are you in Waterloo, or do you know anyone that is connecting the results or that you obtain with the CoastReach or the CoastSnap images with any of some of these parameters?
In short, no. Like, we haven't really been able to do any of that since I did my research following Hurricane Fiona in 2022. That's essentially kind of like where I want it to go. So that's actually really great. If you're doing vegetation surveys or beach profile surveys at any of your CoastReach stations, then that's a really good way to keep honing that technology, because if you're georectifying those images over and over, checking for that beach slope, looking at the wave run up, like these are all things that you can start using to help improve that kind of methodology as well. So I think that's really great. And if I lived right near a CoastReach station, I would probably be doing that all the time. Got another question from Alfredo. Oh, keep in touch. Yeah, for sure. That sounds good.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm also curious, but okay, now we are talking, but if anyone wants to ask a question, just raise your hand, because I also I'm very interested in many things here with the CoastReach. Our plan will be that in next year that we as a citizen scientists, we can start analyzing part of this data. So as I understand you, you are planning next year to have some kind of webinars. I think more than a webinar will be some kind of training. I know that the MATLAB will be a big barrier. It will be great. Someday we can migrate to Python at least, or R. I think that they are quite more simple and less expensive software. But imagine that we have a beach. Now we install only one until today. We only have one beach installed, that is in Moosehead Beach. That Leon is helping there. Leon that is connected here. He is also doing the survey days in this beach. But if we imagine that Leon, as a citizen scientist, he want to access these results from a particular beach, how will be this process? He need to have access to the research access portal, or what will be the way that he can at least the pictures?
Yeah, so he can just send an email to this email address and ask to have an account, and then we will set that up.
Okay, great. Very straightforward.
Yeah.
Lorraine,
oh, and just to add to your MATLAB comment there, Camilo, I do have a student this semester looking at a Python repository on GitHub that someone translated everything from the MATLAB scripts into Python, and they also used machine learning to automatically detect the GCPs in the images, which significantly cuts down the sort of manual labor time to analyze that data. And the last time I checked in with her, she kind of just started to get it working. But that is my hope, is to at least migrate over to Python, because at least it's open source, and you don't have to pay for a license.
Okay, thank you. No, and also we in DAL, we are working with a bunch of professors the Faculty of Computer Science. So I think it will be a conversation that we're going to have later. I think we can do some collaboration. But Lorraine, please.
Yes. How soon could we get something like this set up? Because yesterday I went to 3 different beaches, or tried to go to 3 different beaches, and they're not accessible because they have become pure rock. But we could get a good, so I can't get down to do the beach monitoring and so on, but they would be accessible to be photographed. And I have somebody who would photograph all 3 at least once a month. So that's sort of for Camilo too, to see, because that's Cow Bay. None of the beaches there are accessible. They used to be very popular beaches, but now they're not available. So it doesn't sound like it's too expensive to set up.
No, it's really not too expensive. The only thing to sort of get started with that planning is who actually owns that land, unfortunately. So is it part of the municipality? Is it privately owned? Is it part of Transport Canada property? So these are all questions that you just need to start asking about these areas first, just because do we need to ask for any other permissions before we go out and install these? That's really the kind of just the first planning step there that I would suggest.
One of the best areas happens to be behind one of the Anglican churches, and the Anglican church is involved in healthy coastlines and so on.
Yeah, actually, they Camilo, don't you want to install one there? Was it at that church, or is it a different church?
I'm not sure if it's in the same church, but because the project started with the Anglican church. So I think, for example, Leon, is a very active citizen scientist, but it's also part of the Anglican church. So I don't know if we are talking about the same church, the same spot.
Christ Church, Cow Bay. So no, not.
No.
Okay, sorry, my fault. But yeah. So Lorraine, if the church owns the land and they're supportive of the project, then that's perfect. As long as you have permission. Obviously, I don't want people to go out and just starting to install posts on property where they're not allowed. So that no, that's great if the church wants to be involved. Again, if you are interested in a couple of stands, if you can just email the email on the slide to get in touch, and we can start setting that up.
Yeah, and I also copied a couple of questions there in the chat, maybe that is related with that. How to start the webinar, about the impacts, the environmental impacts, positive and negative, because at the same time, it's not that all impacts are negative. And in this case, I think most of the impacts are positive. But could you tell us about your experience installing the cradles and especially for example, in Parks Canada, how was this process to reduce the environmental impact?
Yeah, for sure. Just really quick, Alfredo mentioned there's some efforts from the Australia people developing the Python algorithm. That's great to know. Alfredo, if you know of a different Python repository that I don't know about, feel free to send it to me, and I'll have my students starting to look at it. Sorry, Camilo, how to install a cradle, parts, preparation of reference points, etc. So the installation can be pretty simple, guys. What a lot of the parks do, if there's no pre-existing infrastructure. So first thing, just think about, is there already pre-existing infrastructure here? Is there a boardwalk or even just a post there already for safety equipment or something like that? Obviously, it's preferred to not add more infrastructure to the environment to decrease that environmental impact. But overall, the environmental impact is pretty low. So you can either pretty much just dig a hole like with an auger, like if you're going to install a fence post. What a lot of people like to do is basically just slap the stand onto a 4x4 post and stick that in the ground the same way that you would install a fence post. In some of our beach or cobbly environments, we did have an Environment Climate Change Canada colleague this year. He would preset the post in a bucket with cement, and then take that base out of the bucket and then bury it in the sand or in the sort of cobbly environment. And that's been working really well. So those are kind of my suggestions for stand installation. The stands themselves do have some machined holes down the stand, so you can just stick a bolt or a screw in there. But yeah, 4x4 post is the easiest thing to install too if there isn't existing infrastructure nearby. And also as an option, if you wanted to simply install on a boardwalk railing, we are also manufacturing, it's just a cradle with a small base. So you could also attach that to a boardwalk railing if that's already present in your area. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, totally. No, I would confirm because we install in Moosehead Beach. We use sonotube, but we have not just the cradle, but also some signage related with the project, with the Anglican Church, with the Healthy Coast. But yeah, I think this sonotube was in the school in this area in Sheet Harbor, and it works very, very, very good. Just last question from my side, at least, is that about the restriction for using the images, because you say that it's open access, this information, but normally we have some situation with privacy or the stewardship of the beach. So what is your experience and your suggestion or your instructions?
Yeah, so we haven't had any issues with that in the past. Right now, what we do have is a verification system for the images. So if there's anyone in an image that's close enough up that you can make out the details in their face, we mark that image as invalid. So we're already kind of doing that as part of as the images come in. That's mostly just to make sure that the images aren't displayed on the public gallery on the website. But essentially all those images with any faces that are recognizable all go into an invalid folder. So really we would just have to ask that anyone who has access to the research analytics portal either don't use the image. If they do need to use it for data purposes, then we would just ask that they obviously blur the faces out so that there's no privacy issues there.
Okay, perfectly. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have any other comment, question. We have many people connected, so I think it could be the other topic. And meanwhile, just waiting, we have a last question. I would like to comment that one of the ideas that we have is that normally CoastSnap, all these initiative, worldwide initiative, is quite more a crowdsourcing that already citizen science project, in the sense that most of the people, and this is one of the interests that we have in Guidebrook County, is that also it could be even a tourist attraction, so that the people go there and take the picture and they feel that they are doing something that is interesting, that is it have some meaning, but the same they are helping us. However, one of the situation is about the frequency, because we have seasons. Of course, during summer, maybe we have many pictures, but normally we have storms during winter that not many people go to the beach. But one of the situations that we have, for example, is one park that's very close to from where I'm living, is the Black Dog Cove Park. And the people in the community, I think at least 50 people daily go to the beach. So one of the ideas is that, imagine that we are taking every day one picture and we receive 50 with 20 pictures a day. I think it will be amazing for us.
It
so
will.
This is one of the way that we want to connect this idea of crowdsourcing to the citizen science part. So it's not just that someone that took the picture because it looks nice, but also that the people start also notice this difference during the year, and especially. And this is just also common for all our citizen scientists. If we have a storm, the day after, as you show before with PI, after a storm, after any weather, especially extreme event, these pictures are gold, are really, really important for us as researchers.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we have problems with that over in Ontario too, obviously, less people going down to the beach. But I think part of that goes into the community outreach portion is just how do we advertise these programs to those local communities, because ultimately the local people are the ones that care about that environment as well. Like Lorraine, obviously, you can see that those beaches are losing sand. Like if you would be one of those people who would go out to these locations and take one of those photos. At my study sites in PEI, you have your daily beach walkers who go down to the beach no matter what the weather is, and you can just tell that they're the locals, like bringing the garbage back and things like that. But that's definitely part of the struggle, is just how to communicate these projects and make those local communities aware of the projects as well, because they already care, but how do we get them to care enough to take an image and then obviously upload it. But yeah, so part of that is the community outreach and the advertising of the programs, I think.
Yeah, totally. I think it goes to the last question from Alfredo. He said that is
Okay.
could be the last one. But I think it's related with the same conversation that we are having now. That it's how to convert, to transform these projects in monitoring. So I think that from my side, I will ask word first this part, but I will like that, Libby, you ask word from your side. But I think citizen science made the things, I will say forever. So if we are living there, this is the advantage with citizen science. We are not depending on funding at the end, because we have this awareness about why it's important that we take this data. And if we also connect with tourism, this is a way that maybe we can obtain some funds. But this is my opinion from Alfredo's questions. But what is your opinion?
Yeah, so Alfredo's question about funding having a clear end date. Alfredo, essentially what we try to do is whenever we do apply for any of those funds, we make sure to manufacture as many stands as we possibly can with that money. And then so we hopefully have an overflow, even if our project funding did end. We haven't had any issues with funding ending yet since the start of the program. So we started with some in-kind funding from Parks Canada to get our project, the Coastie projects, going in their national parks. And then we rolled right into the Canadian Geological Society grant. And then once that exhausted last year, we had just rolled into the Canada Water Agency grant. So actually, we are sort of experiencing a difficulty with that right now, since our funding is only specific to the Great Lakes. So to answer your question, we have not tried to link the monitoring with council programs yet. What is mostly happening is we are contacted. So for example, Camilo contacted me. A couple groups in Newfoundland have contacted me that have already pursued funding for their own projects, and then they reach out to us to then use this equipment as part of their own funding, which has been working really well. But yeah, we are kind of just rolling with the punches right now. Anne-Marie and Dave, what sort of protective or conservation measures you hope this will be able to yield in the future? That's a great question. I am just hoping that the technology is able to improve, and that we get enough image frequency that this is a full-fledged monitoring program for these different areas. So for example, for a lot of our coastal areas, we have some pretty solid data sets of shoreline dynamics, because the program has been running for a few years already. Some of these CoastReach projects are just kicking off, so we don't quite have those substantial data sets yet where we are really sure about the seasonal changes that we're seeing or about the yearly changes that we're seeing. But once you get a few years in at a specific site, you can really start to understand that site and use this analysis as a monitoring method.
Okay, thank you, Libby. I don't know if we have another question, another comment. We would love to hear you. Okay, if we don't have more questions, just to say again, thank you, Libby, for all your presentation. It was great. The answers, I think we have a great conversation, more than half an hour conversation. I think this is amazing. This is the idea with the webinars. And of course, thank you to everyone who were connected today. Many of our citizen scientists that I'm really happy when we see here our citizen scientists, because this is created, for you. And so thank you to Crystal, to Joan, Jack, Jude, Leon, Lorraine, team, and I know that also it's a Seabreeze campground, so I know that is Bob and Caroline there. So thank you for being connected today. Thank you, Mitch, also for connecting from the Nova Scotia Parks, and also Anne-Marie from the Guidebrook County Tourism Association, and Alfredo, that was connected from the future, because he's in Thursday. He's in New Zealand. So thank you, everyone, for staying here. Thank you again, Libby, and see you in the next webinar in November.
Thanks for having me, guys. See you later.
Thanks, Libby. Thanks, Camilo. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.